Before the video starts, go ahead and run this video up. Go drop a like and subscribe, whatever, everything. Do everything you can. I have had to restart this video 3 fucking times and I have been going at it for 4 fucking days straight. I am not asking you, I'm telling you. Go run the video up. Anyways, sorry about that. As always, if you have not watched The Boys, huge spoiler warning coming your way. This show has been out for many years now. If you haven't watched it, then go watch it. Please know that I have put my best efforts in taking out as much inappropriate content, so I'm going to put a disclaimer in this video. The following video may contain content of an adult nature. If you are easily offended or under the age of 18, please exit the video now. This video and the content within are intended for adults only and may include scenes of sexual content, suggestive pictures, drinking, drugs, sexual assault, or graphic violence. Viewer discretion is advised. I know I haven't uploaded in a while, but with the length of this video, you guys are eating well tonight. That was quite a long intro, but anyways, let's get on with the video. Now, The Boys holds a special place in my heart, and I know that statement is very condescending because the only video I made on this channel about The Boys is about me shitting on it. And don't get me wrong, I'm going to be shitting on this show way more in this video, but the show didn't always used to be like that. No. This show used to be my favorite show that I think I ever watched. And when I say that, I'm not saying that it's the best show that I ever watched. I'm just saying that this used to be mine and everyone's shit. And it still kind of is for a lot of people, but fuck, that last season was a whole new level of low. Now, what made this show so good, in my opinion, was the premise. The first season somehow manages to showcase a compelling narrative with great character work without feeling like it's rushing anything. But the problems in this series arise from the way that it does that. See, the show only has 8 episodes every season, which isn't surprising for a TV show to have less than 10 episodes nowadays. But in not feeling like it's rushing anything, the show is very selective in what it wants to focus on. But to get into that, we have to talk about the premise, so let me give you a quick rundown for those of you who haven't watched it. The premise of this show is, in this universe there are superhumans that are born with their powers, and the strongest of those supes are part of this team called the Seven, which is owned by a corporation named VOD that is run by humans that managed to get these superhumans on a leash and control them. And the Seven are a mirrored image of the Justice League, but you learn within the first 15 minutes that they are nothing like the Justice League. Like any corporation, they market their heroes as good people, and they say that supes are chosen by Jesus and that's how supes are made. However, because these supes are not like the Justice League, meaning they don't do good things for the right reasons, and really, if you stop to think about it, I don't think they even team up as a group once in the entire runtime of this show. What I'm trying to say is that these supes in the Seven only save people whenever it benefits their brand. And because they don't save people and don't operate like the police, meaning they don't go out and stop crime or anything, they end up doing a lot of wrong to normal humans. And it doesn't stop there. Huey's girlfriend was killed by A-Train, and then after that we see A-Train publicly apologizing for the death of Robin, saying it was an accident and that she ran out on the street in front of him.
Bank robbers. She just stepped in the middle of the street. You know, I couldn't.
Middle of the... She was a half step off the fucking curb.
Then we see A-Train laughing about killing Robin, so what do normal humans without powers do about this? Well, they team up with other members of the Boys, and their plan is to take down VOD and take down the Seven, with Homelander being the main target, and the other members of the Boys having a similar agenda with supes or VOD fucking them over. Those other members of the Boys include Frenchie, Kamiko, Mother's Milk, and yes, that's his name.
That's a nickname?
No, my mother actually named me Mother's Milk.
Did she?
And Huey and Butcher. Not only that, they all have different outlooks, agendas, and boundaries when it comes to this operation. Huey thinks that soups aren't all bad and they are very often manipulated or coerced into doing things like this. Meanwhile, Butcher also used to have a very similar mindset to Huey, where Butcher also thought the Seven were heroes. However, in the first season, Butcher is now on his full-end revenge arc, and he wants to kill Soups no matter what. No matter if they're like Starlight and do good things with their abilities. Mother's Milk has a similar mindset, but MM doesn't kill people, but he still wants to bring down Vought, which I'll explain this character's backstory because it'll make more sense in season 2 once I get to that part of the video. Frenchie, however, does whatever anyone tells him to do, whether he thinks it's wrong or not. And Kamiko, the only reason why they don't kill her is because she's useful to them and she's on the side of the boys, and she also has powers. That is the simplest way I can explain the premise of the show. Rich and powerful Soups are being hunted down by the humans they did wrong by, and the boys, even though they are very unorthodox, they do end up killing a lot of Soups, and some of them are even members of the Seven, like Translucent. Huey doesn't want to kill Translucent, but if they let them go, the Seven will kill the boys and Vought will just cover it up. And that is what I love the most about this show, is that even though these characters, both the humans and Soups, do awful things, you can still understand why they are the way they are. But unlike other superhero properties, the show doesn't treat the audience like we're fucking stupid and ends up making us care about characters that we shouldn't even like in the first place. And this is more character work for a superhero property than you'll probably ever see in your entire life. And they keep doing it, and it works so fucking well for the first 3 seasons. However, the way the Soups get their powers is actually because they are injected with this drug called Compound V into their systems when they are babies. And obviously Vought is also covering this shit up because they always do. And Compound V is this drug that gives a human their powers, but when it's injected in babies, it usually works, and when it's given to adults, those adults usually die. And the adults who are shown in this show who take Compound V usually just end up being soup terrorists or supervillains, but they all eventually die anyways. So in jamming in all of this shit in the first season, we start to see a lot of the cracks in the show, because 8 episodes isn't enough for this many characters and for this insane of a plot. Also, you may realize that all the superhumans in this show have super strength on top of the primary ability they possess. For example, Starlight has the power to manipulate light and also has super strength. Translucent can make himself invisible and also has super strength. And the Deep can swim underwater and talk to fish, and he also has super strength. And the only reason why the show even does this is so the boys can't just shoot and kill them, so then they are forced to come up with creative ways to kill the Soups they are hunting. And the only way the boys kill Translucent is by shoving a bomb up his ass, and then Huey just blows him up. Even Frenchie uses benzodiazepine to de-aggro a Soup that gets stronger as he gets angrier, but that's never actually shown, and in other episodes, the boys just shoot Soups point blank, and it works. So what I'm trying to say is that it's hard to tell if the boys are ever in real danger, because we don't know if the Soups can just die from a fucking bullet to the head, and the show just doesn't have time to explore this side of the Soups. You may also realize that Vought always keeps talking about wanting Soups in the military, but that never really goes anywhere. And they never show us having Soups in the military, and they never stop talking about it either. This season doesn't really get that political until the 4th season, and that's probably for the best. You're gonna hear me very often say that things were going good until season 4, but just wait, you'll see how fucking bad that 4th season is. You may also realize that this show has a huge shock factor problem. See, the boys and the Harry Potter movies have a very similar problem, where neither of those properties can sell the emotion when a character dies. And that's because everyone that dies in this show dies from an awful, awful death. Robin dies because A-Train runs through her, and you see all of her blood and bones, and like you literally see everything of her like splattered out on the street, and that's just very unnecessary. Translucent dies because a bomb explodes that was put inside of his butt, and then Black Noir dies because Homelander runs his arm through him, but that isn't until season 3. And like I just said, there's also a ton of fucking blood anytime anyone dies, and that really just doesn't work for me, but whatever. I really thought that that would be something that the show would have in its trailers and kind of get away from as the series goes on, but it just doesn't, and I really don't like that they took that route. And also, this show kind of has like a plot twist or like character twist, like someone who was died but actually ended up being alive at the end of the season. Remember when Homelander sexually violated Butcher's wife, Rebecca? Well, he actually ended up getting Rebecca pregnant, and this show doesn't outright say it, but Supes can't get normal humans pregnant. And this is the first time ever where a soup was born instead of being made. And this show also expects us to believe the same Twilight bullshit, where soups have been alive since the 1940s, but no soup has ever tried to get a normal human pregnant, much like in Twilight where vampires have existed for hundreds and hundreds of years, yet in the first movie, it was the first ever time a vampire got a normal human pregnant. Like, come on, man, this is just some bullshit, alright? Now, Rebecca had the baby 8 years ago from this point, and we are literally shown a clip of both Rebecca and the baby dying during labor. And of course, I can't show you any of that because it's fucked up. But this season ends with both Rebecca and Ryan, the baby, still being alive at the end. And to go back on the violence of the boys, I really do think this show would be a lot better if the show just drifted away from all the blood and violent showings of death. I really thought this show would just drift away from all that gory shit as the show goes on, because this season proves that this show doesn't have to have over the top gore and blood to be a good show, not just a good superhero show. Also, the show ends with Homelander lasering the woman he loves straight through her face and Butcher blowing up Madeline Stillwell. Keep this ending in the back of your mind for the next season. So anyways, yeah, a lot of problems, but a very good solid first season, 8 out of 10.
Bad guys want to hurt us just because of what we look like. They want to wipe us from this earth just because of the color of our skin.
Really?
It's called white genocide.
This season sucks. For starters, this whole season is just people blackmailing each other the whole time, and that's literally the entire plot. The show introduces Stormfront, who actually turns out to be Homelander's mom. And she actually was the first ever person to be injected with Compound V, the drug that gives Supes their powers. Now, like I said before, the extensive nature of their powers and capabilities is never really outright explained in the show, but Stormfront just doesn't age somehow. And of course, she has super strength and she can shoot electricity out of her hands and she can fly. However, the reason why I say that this season is just everyone blackmailing each other is because no one minus Stan Edgar, the CEO of Vought, know that Stormfront is a Nazi who was alive during the time that Hitler was in control of Nazi Germany. And the reason why Stan Edgar even brings Stormfront into the 7 is because Stormfront is preaching all this shit about how everyone needs Compound V. Stan Edgar uses her to pretty much market V to the Pentagon and all these other branches of government agencies, because in this season Huey exposes Vought to the world that Vought was actually drugging babies with Compound V and also covering up a lot of malicious actions from their Supes. So Stormfront kind of just spreads propaganda of Vought, saying that yeah, Vought does all this evil shit, but everyone needs Compound V in order to secure their safety in a world full of Supes. Which is a pretty good premise, and Stormfront is actually a really funny character, but the problems with this season is that There's really nothing new going on here. This is just more of the boys trying to take down Vought and Vought ending up on top like usual. I should also mention that the boys are wanted fugitives and they still end up showing their faces out in public, and yet no one recognizes them at all. This season also got rid of the stupid ass blue effect that the first season had going on, so I'm actually quite happy they got rid of that. And back to what I was saying about everyone blackmailing each other, in this show these characters just keep going back and forth with ways they're gonna expose Stormfront or Liberty. For example, Starlight starts recruiting other members of the Seven to help her and the boys take down Stormfront. I also forgot to mention that Starlight is working with the boys and ends up flipping Queen Maeve and A-Train. And A-Train ends up getting information on Stormfront's Nazi past with pictures and documents, proving that she was part of Nazi Germany. Now me saying it like that makes it sound like this season isn't that bad, but Starlight ends up being blackmailed by Stormfront because Stormfront finds out that Starlight was the person who ended up slipping Compound V to the boys, which ended up exposing Vought. However, Starlight ends up saying that if Stormfront does that, then she will expose Stormfront, who used to be Liberty, and that she's also a Nazi. And the way Starlight got this information was because they blackmailed A-Train into getting it because Starlight saved A-Train's life in the last season, because the junkie speedster had a heart attack from shooting up too much Compound V. And then Homelander hears about this, and the boys plan to take down Stormfront and take Ryan away from Homelander. And in the very last episode, the only reason why Homelander doesn't kill any members of the boys is because Queen Maeve blackmails Homelander into not killing them, because if he does, then she'll release the footage from Flight 137. You see what I'm saying? This whole season is just people blackmailing each other over and over and over again. It just does not stop. But the real reason why this show just feels very weak is because of the introduction of Ryan. See, ever since Ryan was introduced, this show kind of focuses on him too much, and it distills a lot of the characters who had a very good character arcs going for them. Homelander in the first season of The Boys was a very compelling villain. He himself found out all the identities of all 4 members of The Boys by himself, and even threatens other members of the Seven, showing that it doesn't matter if he loves you or if they're a part of his team, he will find out eventually and he will kill you because of it. The writers wrote season 1 Homelander too good, and because of that, in the later seasons he's just hanging out. He doesn't really do anything in season 2 besides crash out and have sex with his mom, which is a statement I never thought I would ever say on this YouTube channel or in my life. Think about it like this. Imagine if Breaking Bad season 1 started off with Gus Fring as the main antagonist. Now you might not think that would be bad, but because the boys wrote Homelander to be too competent, now for the plot to continue, they have to dumb him down for the plot to continue happening. In a lot of these episodes, you'll realize Homelander's powers aren't very consistent. He pulls up to Frenchie's van in season 1 and suspects that Frenchie had something to do with Translucent disappearing. But he can't hear Translucent and Huey having a conversation just a few feet away from the building they're in. The rest of the show suffers from these writers being very inconsistent in handling Homelander's character arc, and that's not going to change in the future seasons. When people say they love Homelander or Homelander is an amazing villain, they're talking about season 1 Homelander, not this one. This is funny, but this is why I and millions of people love this show.
Oh, no. No, what? So they can tell the world that we left the rest of them to fucking die? All of you, stay back! You stay the fuck back or I'll laser you, goddammit! I'll laser every fucking one of you!
Remember when I told you to remember how the last season ended with Homelander and Butcher having one last standoff? This season also ends with Homelander and Butcher having one last standoff with each other. Also, Ryan kills his mom, and this is what he has to say.
Ryan? Do you do this?
didn't mean to.
But I don't like the introduction of Ryan because, for one, he is focused on way too much in this show for literally no reason. What I mean by that is that it's kind of pushing this narrative that this show is going to end up concluding with Ryan killing Homelander or Ryan versus Homelander, and I really don't want that to happen. I really want this show to end up with Butcher and Homelander either killing each other or one killing the other, but for that to make more sense, we have to talk about the next season because it'll make more sense when I talk about that season. I'm just saying, you might realize when you watch this show that the entire show is building up to Butcher and Homelander. Will they, won't they kill each other? Anyways, let's rank season 2. 7 out of 10. On to the next one.
Of course, I cannot cook like my Sergei. His cassoulet made me come.
Now, this is a season I have been waiting for. This is by far the best season of The Boys. It has the best memes, it's the funniest, and it has some very good writing that goes beyond your average superhero good writing, if you get what I'm saying. So this season picks up right after season 2 with the boys still wanting to take down Vought. Huey is now working for Superhuman Affairs, which is an organization that aims to investigate superhumans and the awful shit that they do. The other part of the boys, Frenchie, MM, Kamiko, and Butcher, are still doing their underground shit and taking down Supes by killing them. Yes, the main narrative is still more or less the same, and the boys are still trying to take down Vought, but in this season the boys are tipped off by Grace Mallory that there is a Russian device that managed to kill Soldier Boy, who was basically the Homelander of the 1970s. Now let me give you a bit of backstory to Soldier Boy and the team he led back then. So Vought was founded in 1939, which was obviously during Nazi Germany, but Soldier Boy, when he was a kid, got into Vaught's drug testing that was going on, and he ended up getting super strength, and from what the boy shows us, that's all the powers that Soldier Boy has for the time being, but later he'll get new ones. Now Vought finds out about Soldier Boy, or Benjamin, that's his actual name, and they end up recruiting Soldier Boy along with other members like Crimson Countess, TNT Twins, Mindstorm, Gunpowder, Black Noir, and of course Soldier Boy. Now this show doesn't really talk about what all exactly Payback did as a group, but I'd imagine that the new show Vought Rising will go into further depths with that. However, what they do show and tell us is that Payback pretty much did the dirty work of Vought instead of marketing their supes as superheroes. This season shows us that Payback was working with the CIA to again prove that supes can be a part of the military. I can't say how much this pisses me off because Vought has been trying this for many decades. And anyways, every member of Payback is here except they're not here to actually work with the CIA. Every member besides Soldier Boy are here to help the Russians kidnap Soldier Boy because Soldier Boy starts acting a lot like Homelander, where he starts hurting many members of Payback and starts acting like he can just do whatever he wants. This flashback is shown to us from Black Noir's perspective due to a traumatic brain injury that Black Noir suffered when he fought Soldier Boy. Now he can't talk, and I love how this show gives us so many superheroes who all have different kinds of problems. We see supes like Black Noir who can't talk, yet you can still tell exactly how he feels and what he's thinking. You have Kamiko, another supe who can't talk, yet she can still convey her emotions just as well as anyone. You have supes who are bipolar, supes who can't see, supes with narcolepsy, you have supe terrorist. I'm telling you, you're never going to get this kind of shit in another superhero show ever. And anyways, the Russians kidnap Soldier Boy and Swatto gets blown up by an RPG. The reason why Grace Mallory was able to tip off the boys is because she was actually a part of the CIA operation, and so was Stan Edgar. However, Grace doesn't actually know that Soldier Boy was kidnapped and not killed, but everyone in present day thinks that Soldier Boy was killed and has remained dead. However, that's not the case, obviously, but the boys eventually find out where Soldier Boy is being kept, and they end up flipping Soldier Boy to help the boys kill Homelander. That's the meat and potatoes of this season, but in order for the boys to get this information, Butcher ends up taking temporary compound V, which is a new drug they invented this season, and it's just green and it lasts for 24 hours. So instead of Butcher taking Compound V, a drug that has been tested for almost a fucking century, he just ends up taking this new drug invented by Vought. Now I'm gonna get back to this in a minute, but one thing that I haven't mentioned yet is that Soldier Boy is actually Homelander's dad.
Danielle Deneau. Bush like a Pomeranian.
What?
I beat my meat into a cup.
Yes, Soldier Boy and Stormfront are Homelander's parents, and Soldier Boy finds out a while before everyone else does, but now it flips the objective of this season. The boys went through so much to get Soldier Boy, who now has the ability to take superhuman's powers, and now after Soldier Boy and Homelander find this out, they don't really want to fight each other anymore. Specifically, Homelander doesn't want to fight Soldier Boy anymore. This happens at the end of the season, but it still is a very compelling story where we don't know if Soldier Boy is actually going to kill his son or if his son will kill his dad, and Homelander even gets Ryan involved and shows that Soldier Boy has a grandson now. And for a minute, this does kind of work for Soldier Boy because Benjamin has had a very shitty life with his past family, and both Soldier Boy's and Homelander's parallels are done very well in this show. This season shows us that both Soldier Boy and Homelander's team turned on them, both of their love interests tell them to their face that they fucking hated Soldier Boy and Homelander, and they both had awful experiences with their family. But they can both change that right now if they come together as a family, and no one would be able to stop them. However, there's one soup that now has the potential to be able to kill both Soldier Boy and Homelander, and that's Butcher. And see, I get that my previous statement about Ryan was a bit harsh, but this is why I don't want this show to conclude with Ryan versus Homelander. Butcher gets the powers of Homelander, and before these two start fighting, they both say to each other that they share the same destiny, that they both will end up fighting to the death at one point or another. But regardless, even if Soldier Boy and Homelander and Ryan end up teaming together, Butcher could potentially take on both of them. Both Homelander and Butcher even say to each other that they would fight to the death, and they don't, and it pisses me off. Now, I made another video about this season's finale because this episode really pisses me off. To summarize what happens, Queen Maeve, Soldier Boy, Ryan, and Butcher meet Homelander at Vought Tower, and they end up fighting, but for the sake of making this video shorter, Homelander and Butcher don't end up fighting to the death, but instead no one dies, and Soldier Boy blows up outside of the tower. Also, Homelander and Ryan just walk out of the room after all is said and done. But the reason why this season 3 finale ends up pissing me off so much is because this show sets up so much shit, but none of it gets concluded because this show just wants to keep fucking going for no fucking reason, and this show doesn't need 5 seasons. If this show would have ended right here with Homelander and Butcher killing each other, then it would have been one of the best superhero shows ever made. And you can still keep the show going because you still have to find a way to get rid of Soldier Boy. It's not uncommon for superhero shows to have less seasons. Some really good superhero TV shows have far less characters and fewer seasons. Some superhero shows would benefit from having fewer seasons. Other superhero properties would benefit from not having any seasons at all. But again, if this show would have ended right fucking here, it would have been for the best. Very good season, shitty conclusion, 7 out of 10. Now I would talk about season 4, but the studio decided to make another spinoff that's supposed to lead off into season 4 of The Boys. And now my problem isn't so much with the spinoff itself, it's the reason why this and now many other spinoffs of The Boys are offspringing. Gen V is fine. The best way I can describe this show is that it's the Ant-Man of The Boys universe, where this show only exists for the sole purpose of introducing something that's going to matter in future properties. That thing being a virus like kills soups by attacking the compound V in their system, which normally I would make fun of something like that, but it actually makes a little bit of sense. And again, like I said, the show is fine, but it really doesn't go anywhere. And the studio even said that you have to watch this to understand season 4, which you don't. Like I said in my last video about The Boys, you can literally introduce the virus in the 4th season and nothing changes, and it probably would have been for the best. Normally I wouldn't care about a spin-off show, and in fact I like watching spin-off shows, but that's really only when the main property of a show is fully concluded and then they make a spin-off. For this show, there are already 4 fucking spin-offs separate from The Boys. You have The Boys Diabolical, which takes place at various different points in time. We have Gen V, which takes place after season 3 and leads into The Boys season 4, which it doesn't. We have Vought Rising, another spinoff that takes place during the times of when Payback was at large. We have The Boys Mexico, which takes place somewhere else. Now, normally I wouldn't care about a famous property having a bunch of spinoffs because that's what every studio wants to fucking do nowadays. But this show's main reason, which actor Anthony Starr says himself on why the show was even made in the first place, was to combat the current superhero fatigue, which was mainly because of DC Snyder films and Marvel superhero movies and TV shows. But now this show wants to make film timeline jokes, even though The Boys are literally becoming the very thing they're making fun of. Now again, I should say that Gen V isn't bad and the other spin-offs probably won't be bad either, but if this show wants to combat superhero fatigue, then why are we making so many fucking shows? Isn't the whole point to combat fatigue is to have less of them? Whatever. I talk more about this than the actual show, and again, Gen V isn't even bad, and I don't even remember anything that happens and I'm not rewatching it. 5 or 6 out of 10, now onto the real shit.
Yo, what the fuck? That was so fucked up, you guys.
This season really fucking sucks. Like, it really sucks. And if you were watching these episodes as they were coming out like I was, you hate it even more. Now let's take a moment and talk about the plot of the show. Well, that about does it for that segment. Not really, I mean it. This season has no fucking plot at all. Now this season is really hard to talk about, and I've heard Cosmonaut Variety Hour explain this phenomenon very well, where it's seasons like these where it's really hard to talk about this season because there's literally nothing going on. You don't really see any long video essays breaking down this 4th season because you just have to watch this season to understand just how shitty this season really is. I just don't like anything about this season. There is literally nothing good about this season except for A-Train. A-Train has a very good character arc. I can't show you any clips to even add to my claim that it's boring. It feels like I'm watching a sitcom without the laugh track.
Well, I get what you saw in that guy. He was good to Janine, because it sure as shit wasn't a D.
Let's move on. Like I said, this season gets way too political. I know you hear that and you might think, oh, I'm the type of guy to say Star Wars is too political. No. This show gets way too political, to the point where Starlight starts setting up her own organization called the Starlighters, which is supposed to symbolize the left liberals, and the Vought supporters, those who stand with Homelander and his brutal actions, are the far-right conservatives, and none of it works. I mean, call me crazy, but I remember when the only politics we had to worry about was bringing soups into the military, and as much as I bitched about bringing soups into the military, that aspect of politics was never brought up that much in the last 3 seasons. Here I can't go more than 3 minutes without hearing about how bad Democrats are and how good Republicans are. You know what? I lied. There is a plot to this show, and it's just the studio, I'm guessing, pushing their own agenda. There is literally nothing going on other than politics and more politics. Like, can I have some content, please? And you might think this season was written by different people, but it's written by the exact same people that wrote the other ones. What the fuck happened? And yeah, you can argue with me all you want, but when I say this show is running down the rabbit hole, this is what I mean. Also, Ryan kills Grace at the end of the season.
Grace.
I'm sorry.
I did not edit that footage in any way. That's just the fucking pace of this season. Remember how I said season 2 focused way too much on Ryan? The show somehow ends up focusing on him even more. I already said why I don't like whenever the show focuses on Ryan, but literally every character here is just hanging out, and everything that's supposed to matter just happens off screen. Starlight ends up having an abortion off screen. Butcher takes Compound V, the blue one, off screen. The boys end up working for the CIA off screen. minus Butcher. But real quick, let me talk about Butcher. First of all, Butcher now has brain lesions as a result from taking temporary compound V. These brain lesions were causing his brain to leak in the last season, and in this season they're now causing him to have hallucinations, and his main hallucination is fucking Dean Morgan, and he's also just hanging around. I can't believe they brought on Dean Morgan just to be a hallucination. I thought Dean Morgan was going to be the soldier boy of this season, but he's just a hallucination. Then at the end of the season, it tries to pull that, oh, it was just a hallucination this whole time, even though the show made it way too obvious.
What the fuck's that supposed to mean? You're me.
And Sister Sage is literally just here to stage crimes, and that's it. Sister Sage is literally the smartest person in the world, and she's just here to organize the most basic things that anyone could do. Homelander has other members of the Seven kill these innocent people, and then it's Sister Sage's grand idea to have the Starlighters fight with Vought supporters, and then have A-Train plant the 3 bodies to make it look like the Starlighters were the ones who killed them, which would be fine, but do you really need the smartest person in the world for this? It's just staging a crime, and it's not a very sophisticated one at that. Then at the end of the season, she pulls the, oh, I knew this would happen all along bullshit. I knew Butcher would take Compound V off screen, and that the boys were working with the CIA. I knew that Butcher would get tentacle-like powers and all that bullshit, and it doesn't work. There were a lot of people that said she is the smartest person in the boys universe by far, and I'm not one of them. I think writing a character who is on a new level of intelligence is the hardest thing to write for any writers. I'm personally not a fan of smart characters like this because they all just boil down to the same character. Like, they always conclude with, I knew this was going to happen all along, it was a part of my secret plan or whatever. Or they'll do that thing where they write like scientific equations on a chalkboard and do like a bunch of scientific experiments. And for me, there's just no room for character arcs when dealing with a character that can just predict everything and that knows everything. There's no relating to that character, and they are always the most nothing characters in the show. There's even another new character of the Seven called Firecracker who can just snap her fingers and cause fireworks. What? No. She can cause sparks. I take that back. She's supposed to be shooting fireworks out of her fucking hands, but they don't even show that. All she does is just snap her fingers and just create sparks. She even wears an ammo belt around her shoulders, and she literally never uses a gun. The only reason why she's even a part of the Seven is because she hates Starlight. She said Starlight embarrassed Firecracker when they were little kids, and since then she's had a vendetta against Starlight, and of course it happens off screen because everything fucking happens off screen in this season. Why is everything happening off screen, and why are we supposed to care about it? She's also here to breastfeed Homelander, and the show even hints that she's taking pregnancy pills to be able to produce breast milk, which is not something you should ever fucking do. She looks like she's about to die in the later episodes. Huey actually ends up having like the only death in the show that actually almost made me cry, and that was when he had to let his dad go, and he remains as the only consistent character in this show somehow. And a lot of people have talked about this, but somehow Starlight's plastic surgery looks way worse in this season, and she even ends up getting mad at Huey because Huey got sexually assaulted. So let me explain. In this season, there's a soup that can shapeshift into anyone, and the soup has to literally rip off their own skin in order to morph into that character. Obviously, the show just can't have one soup with like normal powers or like normal ways to express their powers. They always have to go through like some extreme measures. Anyways, the soup ends up kidnapping and keeping Starlight held hostage and ends up masquerading as Starlight. This shapeshifter ends up sexually assaulting Huey, and Huey, like everyone else in the show, thought that this was the real Starlight, but then Starlight ends up getting mad at Huey because of this. Now I get that Annie Starlight has gone through a lot of shit, but this literally has no justification. There was no reason for Huey to not think that this was not Starlight. But then she keeps going on about how Huey must have enjoyed the shapeshifter because that Annie didn't have any of the problems that the actual Annie had. And it's just like, dude, no one thought that. There was no reason for anyone to doubt that that was Annie. And I don't know, I just hate this part of Annie that they show us. However, I think that everyone can agree that whenever the real Annie meets her doppelganger, she actually shows that she's a really good actress. Acting apart from yourself is like one of the hardest things that an actor can do, and she somehow manages to make it work very, very well. And this is honestly some of her best work in the entire show. I just wish it came earlier and not fucking 4 seasons later. And even Huey ends up getting sexually assaulted even more by Tech Knight, and I really just don't like how they did this to Huey, and it just makes me upset. Even Homelander just sucks this season. He literally is just losing his mind, and Butcher keeps saying throughout the show that he has to kill Homelander because it won't be long until the soups start dusting off humans in concentration camps. And I would actually love to see that happen in season 4. It would have been a lot better than the shit that made it on screen here. And yeah, Anthony Starr is a good actor, but here he's not good enough to save this season. He's literally not given any material to work with whatsoever. He gives a great performance in the episode about his past, but it's not enough to save this season. The show literally ends with Soups kidnapping people from what I can assume they are finally fighting back against the humans, but it's like every bit of praise is thrown out the window in this season. Homelander is now the CEO of Vought, which he has now been for a few seasons, but he literally starts killing off the humans that work at Vought because he wants Victoria Newman to run for vice president. So he kills the humans that may have dirt on the members of Vought. And it's like, come on, man. It literally doesn't matter if they have dirt on you or not. Your supporters won't believe it anyways, kind of like in real life. And there's literally nothing that humans can do against you. You are literally the strongest person on the planet, and they don't even care about the person that you killed in front of them in the last season. And it's not even the first time he does it either. Literally the very first clip we ever see of Homelander in season 1 is him killing someone in front of a group of kids.
Homelander?
You boys okay? Say that again?
What the fuck does that dirt even matter? I thought the whole point of you going to the lab where you were raised in was to finally learn how to not be human and let go of everything you care about that's been holding you back this whole time. If you haven't realized by now, Butcher and Homelander are now starting to become the complete opposite of each other. Homelander in the beginning of the season was latching on to a lot of people and relationships in his life that were not there. But now Homelander goes and kills the people who raised him in the lab because he's finally letting go of the need for approval from other people. He literally crashes out in the first episode of season 3 saying that he doesn't need humans and that humans need him, and that we should be thanking Christ that he's been a dog on a leash. He fucking says, I'm smarter and I'm better. Then he kills the humans who run Vought, and this is what Homelander has to say once Victoria tells him that if he kills everyone at Vought, there would be no one to run Vought.
You'll have to arrest half your company, half the country.
Wait, you think I didn't think of that? Of course I thought of that. I'm smarter. I'm better. I am better!
But just to add another sprinkle on top, Victoria Newman doesn't end up running for presidency because Butcher ends up snapping her in half like a fucking Kit Kat bar. Anyways, the show ends with Butcher not dying of cancer anymore and Soups kidnapping people, which further adds to my point as to why this show should have ended earlier, because this show is just going on for far too long. In season 3, we're told that Butcher has like a few months of life left, and at the end of the season he's fine and he doesn't have cancer anymore, and he now has new powers that aren't even the same ones that he had prior to taking Compound V. Can you just imagine if you were watching Breaking Bad and in the middle of it Walter just doesn't have cancer anymore and isn't dying anymore? That's literally what's going on with Butcher. And anyways, bad season. Like I said before, if you watch these episodes as they were coming out, then you probably hate it even more. The only thing that keeps one-upping The Boys is reality. All of season 4 is operating on the hypothetical of, wouldn't it be crazy if a powerful guy with blonde hair started kidnapping US citizens and was a fascist? And then you turn on the news nowadays and you see a guy with blonde hair authorizing the kidnapping of US citizens and acting like a fascist. You don't have to agree with me, I'm just saying. I don't even know what I gave it in my other video. I don't even watch my own videos, but here I'd give it like a 3 or 4 out of 10. Very, very bad season.
Wait, you think I didn't think of that? Of course I thought of that.
Now let's talk about my season 5 predictions. I don't give a fuck about Gen V season 2. I'm probably not even gonna watch that. For me, I think a lot of characters are going to die in this season. I think they'll finally stop pulling their punches. And I think the show is going to end one of 3 ways. I think either Butcher is going to kill Homelander and Butcher will die later on, or I think Homelander will kill Butcher and Homelander will live. Or Butcher and Homelander will kill each other. That's like the 3 possibilities I see this show ending on. I can see other predictions being true, like Homelander losing his powers, and I could see that happening, but I don't think that will happen. If you ask me, I think the show will probably end with Homelander living and Butcher dying. Anthony Starr has literally been the only thing keeping the series alive for as long as it's been going on, and the only reason why The Boys hasn't been canceled is because Anthony Starr knows how to play an amazing villain. I think somehow, some way, they'll have this bastard playing the role for a while now. I think the studio has made it very clear that they care more about money and franchises more than a compelling and consistent narrative. They have had the chance to pull the plug before, and I don't think they'll pull the plug now. And why would they even pull it now? There could be a slim possibility of Homelander dying, but I'm not one of those people. And they're not gonna kill him off just before they confirm all of these fucking spin-offs. I'm just not buying it. This show went from combating superhero fatigue to turning into everything that they were against for in the beginning. This used to be one of my favorite shows ever made, but now I don't think so. I'm not sitting here as a movie critic or a TV critic. I am simply talking about how one of my favorite shows ever is becoming the very thing that they were against. If you give this series a watch, you probably won't think I'm just a bitter young man who doesn't like or appreciate anything. You'll probably be just as upset as I am that this show is drifting away from the concepts that made it great.
Of course, I cannot cook like my Sergei. His cassoulet made me come.